It's about 90 to 95 degrees out here. Actually, the official weather station says it's 90, but it's hotter than that. My thermometer actually says it's hotter than that, and it's in the shade. Anyway, this isn't going to be my average pumpkin video. This is going to be an all-over how to grow pumpkins video. Anyway, it's going to be specifically how to grow pumpkins in Zone 5, because that's where I live. So, Zone 5, the lowest temperature is supposedly -20. The highest is anybody's guess. 105, I think, is as hot as it's ever gotten here. And that's Fahrenheit. I do strongly suggest before you grow pumpkins that you know your USDA zone. If you don't live in the United States, I'm sure your country or your area of the world has some kind of a zone map for you to refer to. Be sure to go online and search for it. You can't grow successfully if you're, say, in Zone 5 and you're trying to follow advice for Zone 7. In Zone 5, I would say start your pumpkins indoors if you can. If you can't, plant them outdoors around May 20th or so. And even then, just be careful of frost. And nighttime cold temperatures in the 40s and even low 50s can sometimes slow them down, so don't be real surprised. There we go. I'm just showing you some of the stuff I have here. These are cucumbers, actually. If you have a small garden, less than a half an acre, I would look into short vine pumpkins. I will put a link to a company that sells a lot of seeds for short vine pumpkins. And short vine pumpkin vines can go up to, I've had one that was 50 feet long. More normally they're about 25 to 30 feet. Short vine is, some of them stay under 10 feet. Most of them are 15 to 20 feet. So definitely look into that. Also look at pumpkins that are marked PM resistant. PM is powdery mildew. Powdery mildew is a problem for pumpkins all over the U.S. Maybe except for the desert Southwest, but it is a problem. And I think it's probably a problem worldwide. What it is white stuff on the leaves, and eats away at the leaves and kills the plant eventually. So, what kind of fertilizer to use? You use 2 different fertilizers during the season. If you're really into it, try 3. Let's go into the garage. I'll show you what I've been using. I know I got that creepy door. Okay. Start the season with a higher nitrogen fertilizer, such as this one. How do you know how much nitrogen is in there? NPK marking. The first mark is nitrogen. Second is potash, I think, and the third is potassium. I might have that backwards, so don't quote me on it. And here is what I'm using now. See, much less nitrogen. Tiger Bloom, this is. I supplement with Super Thrive, but you don't have to do that. And I also supplement with Epsom salt. But we'll discuss that later. You can just throw a handful on your plants once in a while, and about once a month, and it may help them. Watering. About 2-3 times a week, especially early in the growing season. Really soak the plants for about a half an hour with your hose. Don't ever let them run dry because they never seem to recover. You see the leaves back there fainting. That's because it's extremely hot today, and pumpkins have poor root systems. No matter how much water you provide during the middle of the day, sometimes they just can't keep up with the plant keeping the plant hydrated, so they do collapse, but they will come back to normal at the end of the day. If they don't, then you might have something called bacterial wilt, which is another problem altogether. But pretty rare as far as I've seen. Here again we have some wilting going on. This you're looking at here is a giant pumpkin. It's a giant pumpkin called Big Moose. But giant pumpkins they have a different name. They're called Maxima pumpkins. And they grow a little differently from your average jack-o'-lantern, which is the average pumpkin you find in the supermarket at the end of the season. These require a lot more space and a lot more food, and you'll find online tons of communities for growing them. And the reason I started this channel and also the Backyard Pumpkin Growers Society is that everything you find online, almost everything, is geared towards growing giant pumpkins. And it's not quite the same as growing a jack-o'-lantern. What you're looking at now is mostly jack-o'-lanterns. These are called Rival, R-I-V-A-L. They are a medium vine pumpkin, and they are a regular jack-o'-lantern. They will not get much bigger than 30 pounds. These are called Peppos. And you see a Peppo female flower there. That one looks like it took. Now, this is more of an issue with perennials than annuals. Pumpkins are annuals. But last winter was a zone 4 winter here rather than zone 5. We went down to -30 one night. That seems to have delayed a lot of things. Also, our spring was quite cool, so we're kind of behind where we normally are this time of year, but not that much, especially since now it's in the 90s. So again, don't differentiate between giant pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns. That's huge. Something you have to learn to do. Don't try to grow. You'll be overwhelmed if you try to grow a jack-o'-lantern like a giant pumpkin. And you're never going to get a jack-o'-lantern to grow into a giant. You get a large jack-o'-lantern, but you're never going to get a giant out of one of these plants. Keep that in mind. And basically, a Peppo, or a non-giant pumpkin, is going to be grown like a regular garden vegetable. Water it, give it lots of sunlight, feed it, and you should have luck. There's not a whole lot of special stuff to do. You can prune the vines if you want to. It will not hurt them, but do leave them with one vine that is growing. They will send out several vines. You can prune 2 of the 3 off, and it'll be fine, but if you prune them all off, you may have a problem. You may weaken the plant. And the other thing is the GMO issue. I go into this rant every year. In a backyard garden, you cannot grow a GMO unless you're right next to a farm field and the farmer was growing GMOs last year and his seeds blew over into your garden. Then, goodness help you, because you can get sued for that. And that's the reason you can't grow a GMO. They're very, very tightly controlled plants. Farmers who grow them have to sign contracts to get them. They just aren't all over the place. Don't confuse the word hybrid, which all these pumpkins that you see here are hybrids. Don't confuse that with GMO. They're 2 different things. GMO is a plant bred with something entirely different from itself. It requires a laboratory. And hybrids are something that can occur naturally. There are people who spend their entire careers growing new hybrids, but you don't necessarily need a lab. They just happen in nature. As a matter of fact, I have a few different pumpkins growing. I have Rival and I have First Prize, which is a Maxima, I think. It was sold as a Peppo, but I think it's a Maxima. And if they crossbreed, I will end up with my own pumpkin here. Can I grow it next year? No. Because they may go back to their original state. Whichever was crossbred may come back. It's hard to tell. The information of that is kind of cloudy. So anyway, that is my basic pumpkin rant. Number 1, know your zone, because I cannot answer for zone 9 when you should start your garden. Here in zone 5, I wouldn't start your pumpkins any later than mid-June. Although some of the local farmers claim that they start their pumpkins not a minute before July 1st. And I don't know what they're growing. That seems to me an awful risk, but maybe I'll try it next year and see what happens. So anyway, that's my rant, and we'll be back to normal videos next week. See you then.